The diver had spent most of his life in the ocean. The water was his home, and he knew its moods better than he knew the streets of his city. Every day he dove into the deep blue, exploring places no one else dared to go. He loved the quiet, the way the sunlight filtered down in thin beams, and how it made the world below the surface look like another planet. On this particular day, the sky was a soft gray, the kind that made the ocean look endless and mysterious. He had no idea that today his life would change forever. He slipped into the water quietly, letting the cold wrap around him. The first few meters were familiar. Fish swam lazily, following currents, unaware of the diver's presence. Small schools of silvery fish moved like shimmering clouds. He waved at a passing stingray, smiling beneath his mask. Everything was normal. He descended slowly, letting the pressure settle into his ears, feeling the familiar squeeze and release as he went deeper. He always checked his equipment twice before diving, but something about today felt different. Though he couldn't say why. As he reached a depth he had explored many times before, he noticed a strange shadow far below. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the light, a rock or a piece of seaweed swaying with the current. But it moved differently. It didn't float lazily like the fish, or drift with the current. It thrashed, and the diver's stomach sank. Whatever it was alive, and it was struggling. He adjusted his fins and kicked closer, curiosity mixed with caution. The shadow became clearer. At first, he couldn't believe his eyes. It was enormous. Its shape was like nothing he had seen before. It had a long, slender body, covered in scales that glimmered even in the dim light. Fins that looked almost like wings extended from its sides, and a tail so long it disappeared into the darkness below. Its eyes were closed, and it was tangled in something. He couldn't tell what yet, but it seemed trapped and panicked. The diver's heart raced. He had trained for emergencies, for rescues of people, even for dangerous encounters with large sea creatures, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. He watched as the creature flailed weakly, bubbles escaping from its mouth, moving slower and slower. His mind raced. Should he go back and get help? But who could he call for this? There were no marine biologists who could handle a creature like this, at least none he knew. The creature let out a sound, low and guttural, that vibrated through the water. It wasn't like any whale or shark noise he had ever heard. The diver froze for a moment, straining to understand. Then the creature thrashed again, and he realized it was choking, unable to breathe properly. That's when he knew he had no choice. He had to act. He swam closer, moving slowly so as not to startle it. The diver had learned over the years that sudden movements could scare even the largest fish, and this thing was enormous. Every stroke was careful, every hand movement deliberate. As he reached the creature, he saw it was tangled in a net, old and rotting, probably left behind by humans who didn't realize the danger. The net wrapped around its wings and tail, cutting slightly into its scales. The diver felt a pang of guilt and anger at the careless humans who could have caused this. He took a deep breath and began freeing the creature. It wasn't easy. The net was thick, and the creature's size made it difficult to work around. He tugged at the ropes, trying to be as gentle as possible, while still being firm enough to loosen the knots. Every once in a while, the creature shivered and tried to move, sending waves of water around them. The diver felt small next to it, yet determined. He had seen animals in danger before, but he had never felt a connection like this. Somehow, he knew this creature was extraordinary, more than just another ocean inhabitant. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. His hands were raw from pulling at the ropes, and his lungs were burning from holding his breath so often while working at depth. Sweat ran down his face under his mask, even though the water was cold. But he didn't stop. Slowly, piece by piece, He cut and pulled the net until the creature could move more freely. When he finally freed the tail, he paused, floating nearby, watching the massive being struggle to right itself. The creature moved slowly at first, flapping its wings, testing the water. Then, with a sudden burst, it pushed itself upward, rising slightly in the water, as though it had just remembered how to swim properly. The diver held his breath, waiting, wondering what it would do next. Would it attack him? Turn away and disappear into the deep? Or worse, would it collapse again, unable to survive the trauma? Instead, it paused and looked at him. Its eyes were open now, large, intelligent, almost human in the way they seemed to study him. The diver's heart skipped a beat. He had seen the eyes of many sea creatures in his life, but nothing like this. There was fear, yes, but also recognition, and maybe even gratitude. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a strange calm wash over him, as if the creature was telling him it understood. He slowly backed away, giving it space. The creature moved a few more feet, then stopped, turning its massive head toward him again. He noticed the scales shimmered in colors he had never seen, like the sun reflecting off oil on water, changing as the creature shifted. The diver was speechless. In all his years underwater, he had seen coral reefs, rare fish, even giant squids, but this was something entirely new. As he floated, watching the creature recover, he thought about what it meant. Was it a new species? Something thought extinct? Or could it really be one of the legendary sea dragons that old sailors whispered about in myths? His mind spun with possibilities, but he kept them to himself. For now, the most important thing was that it was alive. He had saved it. The creature tested its wings again, gliding slowly through the water. It didn't flee, didn't attack it, simply floated, as if deciding what to do next. The diver felt a strange connection, a silent communication between them. He knew he couldn't stay here forever, but he also couldn't just leave it, not yet. He needed to make sure it was okay, to see it safe. And then, as he watched, something in the creature's eyes made him freeze. A deep understanding, a spark of something ancient, flashed briefly. It was as if it recognized him, not just as a human, but as someone who had acted with courage and compassion. The diver's hands shook slightly in the water, adrenaline still pumping through his veins. He had encountered many strange creatures before, but none that made him feel this. Awe, this sense that he was witnessing something that belonged both to the present and to a time long gone. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The water around them was calm now, the struggle over. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The creature would not just vanish into the deep without leaving a mark on him, and he would not forget this moment as long as he lived. Something extraordinary had just touched his life, and he understood, deep in his bones, that the ocean would never seem the same again. For the first time in his career, he realized that some discoveries could not be measured in charts or samples. Some discoveries were measured in moments, in life-saving choices, and in the silent understanding between two beings from entirely different worlds. He watched the dragon-like creature as it floated slowly, its chest rising and falling, feeling its strength return. And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly alive, knowing that he had done something meaningful, something that could change the way the world looked at the ocean forever. The diver lingered, watching the deep shadows around the creature. He knew he should head back to the surface, but he couldn't. He was drawn to it, held by curiosity and awe. The water seemed to hum with energy, the kind of energy he had never noticed before. Every movement of the creature sent ripples through the water, and he realized this was no ordinary animal. It was something ancient, something rare, something that had survived against all odds. He swam closer, careful not to startle it, and whispered to himself, "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." The creature seemed to respond with a soft, vibrating hum, almost like a purr. The diver smiled beneath his mask, feeling a warmth in his chest. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing. This encounter would stay with him forever, etched in his memory like a story that had finally come alive. And as he looked into the creature's eyes, one last time before heading back to the surface, he knew his life had changed in ways he could not yet understand. The ocean had always held mysteries, but this one was different. This one had a heart, a mind, and now a bond with him. And the diver, though unaware of everything to come, felt the first stirrings of an adventure that would redefine everything he thought he knew about the deep. The diver had freed the creature from the net, and for a moment he thought the danger was over. But as he watched, he realized that the creature was not yet safe. Its movements were still weak, and it struggled to keep itself upright in the water. Every beat of its wings seemed laborious, and the diver knew that if he left now, it might not survive. He had saved it from the net, but there was still more to do. He checked his own oxygen quickly. There was enough for a little longer dive, but not much. He needed to act carefully and fast. The ocean was vast, dark, and full of unknown currents that could sweep them apart in an instant. He decided to guide the creature toward shallower waters, where it could rest and regain strength. As he moved closer, he noticed the creature shivering slightly, its scales catching the faint light like rippling water. He reached out carefully, trying to make contact without startling it. The creature's head lifted slightly, and its eyes met his. In that brief moment, he felt a connection, as if it knew he was trying to help. The diver's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had to project calmness. Panic could make the creature thrash and hurt itself or him. Slowly, he reached for its wing. He didn't touch it directly at first, just guided it with gentle nudges, encouraging it to move in the direction he wanted. The creature responded, flapping its wings weakly and kicking its tail. Together, they began to move upward. The diver had never helped an animal so large and strange before, and the weight of responsibility pressed on him. One wrong move, and either of them could be injured. The water around them grew lighter as they rose, and small bubbles trailed from the diver's equipment. He kept one hand lightly on the creature's side, supporting it, while the other hand held his diving knife, just in case he needed to cut anything else. Every second felt tense. He kept checking behind him for nets, sharp rocks, or any other obstacle that could harm them. The ocean was full of surprises, and he had learned to expect the unexpected. As they moved, the creature's breathing became more visible. Tiny bubbles escaped from its mouth, and it seemed to struggle to catch air. The diver realized that it had lungs, much like a human's, but its breathing pattern was uneven and shallow. He had no idea how long it could last if it didn't reach calmer water soon. His mind raced through possibilities. Could it survive on its own in the deep? Or was it too injured, too exhausted? He remembered the old stories he had heard as a child, tales of dragons in the sea that could breathe both underwater and above. At the time, he had laughed, thinking they were just myths. But now, seeing the creature's wings, its glowing scales, and its intelligent eyes, he wondered if some myths were based on truth. Maybe someone had seen creatures like this long ago, but no one had lived to tell the story clearly. The diver focused on the present. He could speculate later. Right now, he had to guide the creature. Slowly, deliberately, he kicked his fins, moving them both toward a section of the ocean floor that rose slightly, creating a natural plateau. The water here was shallower, calmer, and safer for the creature to rest. It was still deep, but the pressure was less, and if the creature could reach it, it would have a better chance to recover. The creature seemed to understand. Its flapping became slightly stronger, and it followed his guidance. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes it veered slightly to the left or right, but the diver adapted. keeping pace and adjusting his movements. Sweat ran down his face beneath his mask, though the water was cold. His muscles ached, and he felt every pound of resistance from the creature's massive body. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. He had started this rescue, and he was determined to see it through. At one point, the creature's tail got caught briefly on a jagged rock. It thrashed in panic, and the diver's heart skipped a beat. He reached out quickly, pushing the tail free. The creature let out a low, vibrating sound, and the diver felt it in his chest. It wasn't angry, it was scared, just like him. For a moment, they hovered, both recovering from the sudden panic. The diver spoke softly, more to reassure himself than the creature. "It's okay. I've got you." Just a little further. They moved on, slowly but steadily. The diver noticed that the water here was filled with small fish, darting in every direction. They seemed to sense the creature's presence and scattered quickly. The diver felt a pang of guilt. He knew this dragon-like creature was unlike anything else in the ocean, and its presence changed the natural flow of life around it. But right now, survival came first. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only minutes, they reached a slightly elevated plateau. The water was calmer, the current weaker. The diver gently guided the creature to lie down on the sandy bottom. It sank slowly, wings folded, tail curling beside it. For the first time since he had found it, the creature stopped flailing. It lay still, breathing heavily, but steadily. The diver floated above it, exhausted but relieved. He studied its eyes. They were still large, intelligent, and alert, though a bit glazed from exhaustion. He wondered what it had been doing in the deep ocean before it got trapped. Did it live here all the time? Was it hunting? Or was it escaping from something else? He had no answers, but he knew one thing: it had survived because of him. And somehow, that realization filled him with pride and awe at the same time. The diver didn't move away. He knew the creature was strong enough to stay here for a little while, but he also knew that leaving it alone in the open could be dangerous. Predators might sense weakness, or humans might stumble upon it. He stayed near, scanning the area, keeping his eyes open for any threat. At the same time, he couldn't stop watching the creature. Its scales shimmered faintly in the filtered light, and tiny bubbles rose from its gills-like structures, releasing them slowly. It was beautiful in a way he had never imagined. Not as he watched, he noticed something else. The creature's movements were becoming more coordinated. It flexed its wings slightly, testing its strength. Its eyes followed him, and he felt, almost like a whisper in the water, that it recognized his presence as protective, not threatening. He marveled at how intelligent it seemed. Even in its weakened state, there was awareness, curiosity, and something almost human in the way it looked at him. The diver realized he had to give it more time to recover before thinking about moving or leaving it. He checked his oxygen and his air tanks. They were running low, but he had enough to stay a little longer. He adjusted his gear and sank down closer to the creature, just to make sure it was okay. The creature didn't move away. Instead, it shifted slightly, letting him float nearer without panic. It was a small sign, but it reassured him. Minutes passed. Slowly, he felt the creature gaining more strength. Its flapping became stronger, more purposeful. It nudged slightly against the sand, testing the bottom, and then lifted its head to look at him. The diver couldn't help but smile beneath his mask. He felt a bond forming, a trust being built in the water between two very different beings. It was extraordinary and humbling. He knew he couldn't stay forever, but he also knew he couldn't just leave immediately. He needed to see that it was stable, that it could survive until the next step. And in that quiet moment, floating together in the deep, the diver realized something important. This creature was not just a random being of the ocean. It was special, different, perhaps even unique. and he had been the one to save it, to give it a second chance at life. For the first time that day, the diver allowed himself to relax slightly. He leaned against a rock, watching the creature rest, its breathing becoming more even. He could see the faint shimmer of its scales, the graceful lines of its wings, and the power that it would regain soon. He couldn't stop thinking about what this meant, what this encounter meant. He had rescued something extraordinary from death, and that was a feeling he would carry forever. The diver took a slow, steadying breath, feeling the calm wash over him. The ocean was quiet now, except for the gentle bubbling of his equipment and the soft rumble of the creature breathing. He knew this was only the beginning of their story. He had saved the dragon-like creature, but now they both had a new challenge: surviving together, navigating the ocean. And understanding what this incredible encounter meant, he gave it a final gentle pat on the side before slowly moving back. The creature didn't follow immediately, but it watched him with curious eyes, almost as if understanding that he had done what he could for now. The diver kicked his fins lightly, ready to return to the surface, but he promised himself he would come back. He would check on it, make sure it was truly safe, and maybe, just maybe, learn more about the extraordinary being he had rescued from the depths. And with that thought, he began to ascend, leaving the creature to rest for a while, the sense of awe and responsibility heavy in his chest. He knew the ocean held many secrets, but he had just uncovered one that was unlike anything he had ever imagined, one that would change the way he saw the world beneath the waves forever. The diver stayed close to the creature, floating in the calm waters above the sandy plateau. He watched it carefully, his heart beating fast with a mix of excitement and concern. The dragon-like being had been through so much, and now, in this strange quiet, it seemed to be recovering. Its chest rose and fell more evenly, and the shivers that had racked its body were slowing. Every so often it shifted slightly, testing the water with a wing or flexing its tail. The diver could see that it was becoming aware of its surroundings again. He held his breath, marveling at its sheer size. Its scales shimmered under the faint sunlight filtering from above, casting tiny rainbow patterns across the sand. He couldn't stop staring. He had saved creatures before, but none like this. Its presence was almost otherworldly. There was intelligence in its eyes, and the diver felt, deep inside, that it understood something about him, about his actions, his intentions. For a long moment, he simply floated there, letting the creature gather its strength. Then, slowly, it lifted its head fully. Its eyes opened wider this time, sharp and alert, and the diver felt a strange shiver run down his spine. The eyes seemed ancient, full of a depth that he couldn't quite comprehend. He realized that this was more than a creature, it was a living legend. The low rumble it made vibrated in the water and seemed to carry meaning. It wasn't a sound of aggression. It was more like a greeting, a recognition. The diver felt his chest tighten. For the first time, he understood that he wasn't just observing this being. He was part of something far bigger. He moved slowly, careful not to startle it. He extended his hand slightly, letting the creature see that he meant no harm. The dragon-like being tilted its head curiously, almost studying him. The diver's heart raced. He had expected fear, maybe even aggression. But this was different. There was intelligence here, a clear understanding that he had helped it. And for a moment, he felt a deep connection, as if the creature was acknowledging him personally. As a savior. It shifted slightly, flexing its wings for the first time fully. The diver watched as it pushed itself upward, its massive wings spreading slowly in the water, creating ripples that danced across the sandy floor. It was awkward at first, uncoordinated, but every movement was purposeful. The diver realized that it was regaining control over its body. Each beat of its wings became stronger, more confident. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. The danger wasn't over yet, but the creature was awakening. The diver floated back a little to give it space. He noticed the creature's tail moving smoothly now, sweeping side to side as it balanced in the water. Its head lifted higher, and it flexed its neck, stretching the muscles that had been tense for hours. The diver couldn't help but marvel at how graceful it looked, even in the water. Every scale, every line of muscle seemed to have a purpose, a beauty that humans rarely witnessed. He felt humbled, standing in the presence of something so powerful and alive. Then came the moment that made him pause. The creature's eyes fixed on him in a way that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just looking. It was observing, calculating, understanding. The diver felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of awe and fear. This creature was alive in a way that felt almost human. It didn't just survive. It was aware of him, and somehow he knew that it was beginning to trust him. The diver's mind raced. How rare was this? How many humans had ever encountered a being like this and survived to tell the story? He remembered the myths the taily sailors had whispered for centuries about dragons of the deep. At the time, he had dismissed them as fanciful stories. Now, staring into those intelligent eyes, he wondered if the myths were true all along. Perhaps humans had glimpsed this creature in the past, but most had turned away in fear. He, however, had acted differently. He had chosen to save, to help, and that choice had created this connection. The creature moved slowly toward him, testing the water around it. Its movements were cautious, careful, as if it was learning about him at the same time it was learning about its own strength. The diver stayed still, letting it approach. He felt a surge of anticipation. This was uncharted territory. No one had taught him how to communicate with a legendary creature from the deep. He didn't know what to expect. But as the creature hovered close, it let out another low, vibrating rumble, one that seemed almost melodic. The sound filled the diver's chest. It was calming, not frightening. He extended his hand again, this time slightly closer. The creature paused, studying him, then leaned forward gently, allowing his hand to brush against its scales. The diver felt a shiver run through him. The scales were hard but smooth, warm in the water, almost alive under his touch. For a moment, everything else faded, the water, the distant light, even the sound of his own breathing. All that existed was the presence of the creature and the bond forming between them. The creature flexed its wings again, stronger this time, and lifted a few feet above the sand. The diver noticed the water around it swirling, tiny bubbles rising in a pattern that suggested it was testing its strength. He couldn't help but feel pride. He had saved it from certain danger, and now it was regaining its power. There was something magical about witnessing this transformation firsthand. The diver realized that in the quiet of the deep ocean, life could still surprise, could still astonish. Time passed, though it was impossible to measure underwater. The diver floated, watching as the creature began to explore its surroundings more confidently. Its movements became fluid, its eyes alert, scanning the plateau and the surrounding crevices. He realized that it was learning, assessing, understanding its environment after being trapped and helpless. Each movement was deliberate, each glance careful. He couldn't imagine how exhausting it must have been for the creature. Yet here it was, gradually reclaiming itself. The diver felt a sense of awe he hadn't experienced before. The creature's presence was overwhelming yet comforting. He realized that this wasn't just a rescue, it was a partnership, even if temporary. He had intervened in its life, and now it was reacting, aware that he had helped. The connection was subtle, almost unspoken, but undeniable. As the creature continued to awaken, it made another sound, a soft hum that seemed almost musical. The diver felt it resonate in his chest. It was not a roar, not a threat, not a growl. It was something else entirely, a sound of recognition, of gratitude, of life reasserting itself. He realized that the creature was not just regaining strength, but communicating in its own way. He couldn't understand it in words, but he could feel the intention behind it. The diver stayed close, careful not to make sudden movements. He wanted to give it space, but also ensure it was safe. He watched as it flexed its wings, stretched its neck, and moved its tail with increasing confidence. He noticed the way light reflected off its scales, showing colors he had never seen in any ocean creature before. It was dazzling, mesmerizing, and impossible to look away from Dot at one point. The creature rose fully in the water, hovering with all its wings spread. It seemed to test the currents, flapping once, twice, then holding still. The diver felt a thrill of excitement. It was flying underwater graceful, powerful, and completely unlike anything he had imagined. He realized that this creature was not just surviving, it was thriving. And he had witnessed the moment of awakening, the moment it regained control of its body and its life. The diver floated near, observing, feeling a mixture of relief, awe, and responsibility. He had saved it from immediate danger, but now he understood that the creature was aware, intelligent, and strong. It was no longer just a helpless being. It was alive in a way that demanded respect, attention, and caution. He felt humbled by its presence and honored to be part of its story. Finally, the creature swam a few circles around him, testing its strength, its wings creating small currents that moved the sand beneath them. The diver watched, amazed at the grace and power on display. He realized that this was a pivotal moment, not just in the creature's life, but in his own. He had encountered something extraordinary, something no human had likely seen in centuries, and he had a role in its survival. He allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The ocean was calm, the creature rested and moved with purpose, and he felt a sense of connection he couldn't explain. This was no longer just a rescue. This was an awakening, a recognition of life and intelligence beyond human understanding. He knew that what he had witnessed today would stay with him forever, shaping the way he saw the world beneath the waves, the power of life, and the importance of compassion. And in that quiet, suspended moment, the diver realized that the adventure was only beginning. The creature had awakened, but now it was aware, powerful, and intelligent. The next steps would determine what kind of bond they could share, what the diver could learn, and how the ocean would reveal its deepest secrets. For now, he floated, captivated, humbled, and ready for whatever came next. The diver floated above the plateau, catching his breath, trying to steady the rush of emotions that had overtaken him since the creature's awakening. His heart was still pounding from the rescue, but now something else weighed on him: curiosity, wonder, and a creeping sense of unease. As he watched the creature flex its wings and swim gracefully in the calm water, a strange familiarity nagged at the back of his mind. There was something about it he couldn't place at first. Its movements were fluid, almost too perfect, as though it had practiced them over centuries. The scales glimmered in patterns that reminded him of ancient shapes he had seen in old marine archaeology books, illustrations that depicted legendary sea dragons long thought to exist only in myth. He blinked beneath his mask, trying to shake off the feeling. Surely it couldn't be. Stories were stories, legends were legends. But something about the way this creature moved, the colors along its wings, and the intelligence in its eyes sent a shiver down his spine. He circled carefully, keeping a safe distance, but trying to examine the details more closely. The creature turned its head toward him, and he froze. Its eyes locked with his, and in that moment, a realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. He turned pale, his mouth going dry. The markings on its scales, subtle as they were in the dim water, matched drawings he had once studied in a hidden chamber of an underwater archaeological site. These were the same symbols, the same shapes etched into ancient stones that had been associated with the legends of a guardian of the deep, a dragon-like creature said to have vanished thousands of years ago. He shook his head, trying to convince himself it was coincidence. Yet the more he looked, the more the evidence piled up. The shape of the wings, the way the tail curved, even the faint glow along its body. It all lined up perfectly with the descriptions from the myths. He had spent years dismissing those tales as fantasy, the kind told to entertain children and sailors during long nights at sea. But now, staring into the eyes of the creature, he realized those myths might have been closer to reality than he had ever dared to believe. A wave of fear and awe hit him at the same time. The diver's mind raced. If this creature truly was the guardian of the deep, he wasn't just dealing with an unknown animal anymore. He was dealing with something extraordinary, ancient, and incredibly powerful. The implications were enormous. This was not just a rescue. It was a discovery that could rewrite what humans thought they knew about the ocean and the creatures that lived within it. He took a deep, steadying breath, trying to calm the adrenaline that threatened to take over. He knew that his reaction couldn't be obvious. If the creature sensed panic or fear, it might become defensive or aggressive. He needed to appear calm, even though his entire body was trembling with excitement and anxiety. He swam a little, closer, keeping his movements slow and deliberate, letting the creature see that he meant no harm. The creature responded, tilting its head as though it were studying him. Its glowing eyes reflected intelligence, curiosity, and perhaps even understanding. The diver realized that, in some way, it seemed to recognize him as the one who had saved it. He felt a surge of humility wash over him. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and immense pressure to free it, yet the creature had survived because of his choices. And now, it seemed to acknowledge that fact in the quietest, most subtle way possible. The diver glanced around the plateau, taking note of the underwater landscape. The sand was soft and pale, scattered with rocks and small coral clusters. Small fish darted between the rocks, cautiously observing the massive creature nearby. The diver noticed the way the water shimmered around the dragon-like being almost, as if it were radiating some energy. He swallowed hard, his mind struggling to grasp the reality before him. It was more than a living fossil, more than a myth. It was history, alive and present, and he was the only human to witness it firsthand. He realized he needed to act carefully. He couldn't rush toward it or make sudden movements, and he couldn't allow any sign of shock or disbelief to escape him. The creature had survived unimaginable stress, and it was beginning to regain its full strength. If he made the wrong move, he could undo all the trust he had built in the past hours. So he stayed still, observing its movements and studying these markings on its scales. The glow along its body intensified slightly as it flexed its wings, and the diver noticed that the patterns were not random. They seemed to form lines, almost like a language or code. He felt his pulse quicken. Could this creature really carry knowledge or information in its very body, passed down from an era long before humans had begun mapping the oceans? He reached out a hand, just enough to signal calm, but did not touch it. The creature responded with a soft hum, a sound that resonated through the water and reverberated in his chest. It was not a roar, not a threat, but a communication, a message of recognition and peace. The diver's mind raced again. He thought of the old stories, told in hushed tones by sailors who swore they had glimpsed such creatures before storms, during nights when the moon shone unusually bright over the waves. He remembered the writings he had studied, ancient carvings, cave paintings, and texts describing creatures that were protectors of the deep oceans. Until now, he had treated them as legends, but now he realized they were based on truth. The guardian of the deep had never truly vanished. It had survived, hidden, until now. The weight of the realization pressed on him. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to keep his movements slow and controlled. The diver could feel the history surrounding the creature, a presence that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. He understood that this moment, this encounter, was rare beyond comprehension. Most humans would never know the creature existed. They would never see it move, breathe, or communicate in ways he now witnessed. He felt privileged, yet anxious. With great discovery came great responsibility. He studied the creature's wings more closely, noticing the ridges and the thin membranes stretched between them. Each movement was precise, calculated, and elegant. The diver realized that this was not a random evolutionary accident. This creature had survived countless years by adapting perfectly to its environment. It was a master of the ocean, and he was now in its presence, unarmed but fully exposed. The thought made him turn a shade paler. The creature moved a few feet toward him, cautiously, yet without fear. It seemed to be aware of his reaction, his sudden pallor, his racing heart. The diver realized that it was not just alive, it was intelligent, aware of humans and perhaps capable of judging their intentions. The hum it made again vibrated in the water, and he felt it as much as heard it. Somehow, the creature seemed to be communicating trust. It was a subtle acknowledgement, a silent message that it recognized him as the one who had helped it. A sudden thought struck him, and his chest tightened. If this creature truly was the guardian of the deep, he had witnessed something far more significant than a rare rescue. He had found a living being that connected the past with the present, a creature that carried secrets, knowledge, and mysteries from a time when humans had barely begun to explore the oceans. He realized that the world would never believe him if he told the story, yet he also knew that keeping it secret was crucial. The creature's survival depended on discretion. He floated, still observing, trying to calm his mind while absorbing the enormity of the situation. He could feel his hands trembling again. He had always known the ocean held mysteries, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He had saved a creature, yes, but what he now faced was a living piece of history, a being of legends come to life. And he had to be careful. One wrong move, one hint of fear or excitement too overt, could change everything. The creature finally stopped moving, hovering a few feet above the sand, wings spread slightly, eyes locked on him. The diver's pale face reflected his awe. He realized that this moment the creature, fully awake, fully aware, and fully alive, was unlike anything he had experienced before. It was a mix of fear, reverence, and wonder. He had saved a life, but in doing so, he had entered a world humans had long forgotten, a world where legends were real, where creatures could live undisturbed for centuries, and where the ocean itself hid stories that could change everything. He took a slow, steadying breath, trying to center himself. He knew the creature's trust was fragile. He could feel the intelligence in its gaze, the awareness that it had survived and adapted far beyond any human understanding. The diver turned pale, not just from awe, but from the weight of the knowledge pressing on him. He understood, at last, that he was witnessing something extraordinary, something rare, something that would stay with him forever. The creature gave a soft, low hum again, almost melodic, and the diver realized it was a sound of acknowledgement, of recognition, of gratitude. He felt a shiver run down his spine as he understood that the bond they had formed, though silent, fragile, and unspoken, was real. He had not just saved a dragon. He had witnessed a moment of awakening, a moment that connected past, present, and the depths of the ocean in ways that humans could barely imagine. For a long time, he floated there, pale and awestruck, watching. The creature regained strength, testing its wings, flexing its tail, and observing its surroundings. He realized this was only the beginning. There were mysteries still to uncove, The diver remained still in the water, letting the gentle currents flow around him. As he watched the dragon-like creature hover a few feet above the sandy ocean floor, the sunlight filtering from above made the creature's scales shimmer in every color of the rainbow, and for a moment the diver forgot to breathe, captivated by the creature's beauty and power. But even as awe filled him, he reminded himself to stay calm. He had seen how intelligent it was, and he knew that one wrong movement could undo the trust they had built. The creature shifted slightly, testing its wings again, and floated closer to him. Its eyes, bright and glowing, studied him intently, and he felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was as though the creature recognized not just his presence, but his intentions. The diver realized that this was not a normal animal response. It was something deeper, almost human in its perception. He felt a connection forming, subtle but undeniable, as if the creature understood that he had saved its life and meant it no harm. He moved a little closer, cautiously letting his hand hover in the water near it. The creature didn't recoil. Instead, it made a soft, low hum, vibrating through the water in a rhythm that resonated in his chest. The sound was calming, almost musical, and he felt it as much as he heard it. He realized that this was the creature's way of communicating, a gentle acknowledgement of trust. His heart swelled with a mix of relief and awe. He had always known the ocean was full of mysteries, but he had never imagined discovering one that could form a bond with a human. The diver watched as the creature circled slowly around him, its wings moving gracefully, stirring the water with gentle currents. Each movement was deliberate, showing awareness and intelligence. He noticed the way it tilted its head when it looked at him, almost studying him like a friend trying to understand another friend. He felt a shiver run down his spine. This was no ordinary encounter. He had saved a life, yes, but now it seemed as though the creature was choosing to stay near him, as if it had formed a silent agreement that they would look out for each other. The diver's mind raced with thoughts. How rare was this moment? How many humans had ever experienced something like this? He had seen dolphins, whales, and even sharks in the wild, but never had he encountered a creature that seemed to recognize his actions and respond with understanding. He felt honored and humbled. Somehow, he knew that the bond forming here was fragile but real, and that it carried weight far beyond what he could comprehend. The creature swam a few circles, then paused and hovered, its wings gently flapping to maintain its position. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on him, and the diver felt a rush of emotion. He realized that this moment was about more than survival. It was about connection. The creature had been trapped, helpless, and now freed by his actions, it seemed, to acknowledge him in a way that transcended language or species. The diver understood instinctively that this was the beginning of an unspoken pact, one that neither words nor promises could fully describe. He extended his hand slowly, letting it hover near the creature without touching it. It tilted its head again, and then, ever so carefully, nudged his hand with the tip of its snout. The diver's chest tightened. This simple gesture carried so much meaning: trust, recognition, perhaps even gratitude. He reached out slightly, more, letting his fingers brush gently against its scales. They were hard but smooth, and the contact sent a shiver up his arm. For a long moment, they remained in this quiet, suspended connection, neither speaking, neither moving too quickly, each aware of the other's presence. The diver realized that the creature was learning about him just as much as he was learning about it. Every movement, every glance, every hum of its body seemed deliberate. He noticed the way it tested the currents, how it flexed its wings and tail to maintain balance, and how it observed his reactions carefully. It was aware, intelligent, and cautious. He had expected gratitude or curiosity, but what he didn't expect was the sense of communication that went beyond anything he had known. This was more than trust. It was understanding. Time seemed to stretch in the quiet of the deep. The diver floated, watching as the creature rose a few feet above the sand, then lowered itself again, circling slowly. Its movements were elegant, precise, and almost ritualistic. He wondered what it had experienced before meeting him. How long had it lived alone in the deep ocean? How many times had it escaped danger, survived storms, avoided predators? He thought about all the myths, all the ancient stories that had described creatures like this. Perhaps they had been based on sightings of this very being, passed down through generations. The diver felt a sense of awe unlike anything he had experienced. He had saved it from immediate danger, yes, but now he understood that he was part of something far greater. He had entered a world that humans rarely glimpsed, where creatures of legend still existed and could choose to acknowledge the humans who crossed their paths. The hum of its body vibrated through the water, a gentle, steady rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. He realized that this sound was a form of communication, a way of saying, without words, "I recognize you. I trust you." The creature circled once more, then paused, hovering directly in front of him. Its wings flared slightly, catching the sunlight in a dazzling display. The diver felt his chest tighten as he realized that the creature was not just alive. It was fully aware of its surroundings, its own strength, and his presence. It was testing him, perhaps, to see if he was worthy of its trust, or simply acknowledging the bond they had formed. Either way, he knew that this moment was extraordinary, rare, and fragile. He floated slowly closer, careful to match its pace and movements. The creature didn't pull away. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, eyes glowing brighter in the filtered light. The diver felt a warmth spread through him. He had never felt such a direct connection with any living being before. This was not just observation or fascination. It was interaction, a silent pact formed in the deep ocean. He understood instinctively that they were now linked in a way that would shape the moments to come. The diver noticed the subtle movements of the creature's body, the way its wings flexed, the way its tail swayed, and the faint glimmer of its scales. Every detail was purposeful, and he felt privileged to witness it. It wasn't just regaining strength. It was communicating, asserting its presence, and sharing an understanding of the world around it. He felt a responsibility settle on his shoulders. This creature depended on him in a way he had never imagined, and he had to honor that trust. The creature swam a few circles around him, then stopped and hovered in place. Its eyes met his once more, and the diver felt a deep sense of calm and connection. He realized that their bond was not formed by words, commands, or even gestures alone. It was formed through action, trust, and mutual recognition. He had saved its life, and it had acknowledged him in return. The diver understood that this was a partnership, even if temporary, built on respect and understanding. He watched as the creature flexed its wings and lifted a few feet above the sand, testing its strength. The diver floated nearby, careful not to intrude, and noticed the way it adjusted its body with precision, each movement deliberate and controlled. It was regaining full awareness of its abilities, and the diver felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had played a role in this awakening, and yet he knew that the creature's strength and intelligence were far beyond his own. As the minutes passed, the creature's confidence grew. It swam slowly toward a nearby ridge, then paused and looked back at the diver. Its eyes seemed to say something beyond words, a silent message that resonated deep within him. "I know you helped me. I trust you." The diver felt a shiver run down his spine. He had never experienced anything like this, a connection so direct, so profound, and yet so fragile. He realized that this unspoken pact would guide their actions in the moments and days to come. The diver remained calm, floating gently, and allowed the creature to move as it pleased. He watched as it explored the plateau, testing its wings, flexing its tail, and observing the surroundings with intelligence and curiosity. He realized that it was not just regaining physical strength, it was regaining confidence, awareness, and trust. And in this process, it had chosen to include him in a way that no human had ever been included before. Finally, the creature returned to him, hovering in place and letting its wings drift lazily. The diver extended a hand slowly, allowing it to nuzzle gently against him once more. He felt a warmth and reassurance that words could not describe. The unspoken pact was complete. They had established mutual understanding, trust, and recognition. The diver knew that the creature would not abandon him, and he would not abandon it. For now, in the quiet, suspended moment of the deep ocean, they were connected, two beings from different worlds, bound by survival, trust, and respect. And as he floated there, the diver understood something fundamental. This was not just an encounter or a rescue. It was a beginning. A partnership had been formed, one that could shape their future interactions and guide them through the unknown challenges of the ocean. And in that moment, he felt a sense of purpose and responsibility unlike anything he had ever known, a reminder that life, trust, and connection could exist in even the deepest, most mysterious places. The diver floated in the calm water, watching the creature he had saved move gracefully through the plateau. Its wings glimmered in the soft sunlight filtering from above, and every movement was precise and controlled. He realized that after hours of observation, rescue, and quiet companionship, the creature was fully awake, fully aware, and fully alive. It no longer seemed weak or unsure, but strong, intelligent, and confident in its environment. For a long moment, the diver simply watched. The unspoken bond between them had grown stronger, a silent understanding that neither needed words to express. The creature had recognized him as a friend, a savior, and perhaps even a companion in the strange, quiet world of the deep ocean. The diver felt a sense of humility and awe unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had witnessed something extraordinary, something humans rarely, if ever, saw in their lifetimes. The creature swam a few circles around him, testing the currents, and then paused again, hovering in the water. Its eyes, glowing softly in the filtered light, met his. The diver felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, awe, and a strange sense of loss, knowing that soon this encounter would change. He realized that this magnificent being could not stay with him forever. Its place was in the depths, where it belonged, free from human interference, free to live as it always had. He understood, without a doubt, that the creature's presence in his life had been a gift, rare and fleeting. It had trusted him, shared a connection, and allowed him to witness its awakening. And in return, he had saved its life, offered it protection, and shared a bond that transcended species and language. That bond, though unspoken, was powerful in understanding that they had been part of each other's lives for this brief, remarkable moment. The creature shifted slightly, spreading its wings fully and flexing them. It rose higher above the sandy plateau, and the diver felt a sudden, almost painful awareness that their time together was coming to an end. The creature's movements were deliberate, confident, and purposeful, as if signaling that it was ready to return to its world, its territory, its freedom. The diver's chest tightened. He wanted to stay, to continue observing, to remain near this living legend. But he knew it wasn't his place to hold it. Its life was its own, vast and untouchable, and he was only a visitor. He stayed still, letting the creature move freely. It circled once, twice, then hovered closer, as if offering a final gesture of acknowledgement. The diver reached out slowly, his fingers brushing lightly against its shimmering scales. The contact was brief, gentle, and full of meaning. It was a final farewell, an unspoken message of gratitude, trust, and mutual respect. He felt a shiver run through him as he realized the depth of their connection, fragile yet unbreakable in its significance. The creature began to ascend, rising slowly through the water, wings flaring and tail trailing gracefully behind. Its glow shimmered brighter as it climbed, catching the diver's eye in a mesmerizing display of light and color. He followed it with his gaze, not moving, not disturbing the quiet, solemn beauty of the moment. The realization that he might never see it again pressed on him, yet he also felt an overwhelming sense of peace. He had been part of something extraordinary, something humans rarely witnessed, and that was a gift he would carry forever. As the creature reached higher, it hovered for one last moment, looking back at him. Its eyes glowed with intelligence, recognition, and something that seemed almost like understanding of human emotion. The diver's heart raced, and he felt tears threaten to escape beneath his mask. He wanted to speak, to say thank you, to express all the awe and gratitude he felt, but he knew the creature could not understand human words. So he simply stayed still, letting the silence speak for him, trusting that the creature understood in its own way. Then, with a powerful beat of its wings, the creature propelled itself forward and upward, leaving the plateau and disappearing into the vast, open waters above. The diver watched until it was a small shimmer in the distance, then another, until it vanished entirely. The water around him was quiet again, the current soft and gentle, and the ocean seemed to exhale, returning to its calm state. He floated for a long time, letting the moment sink in. He had witnessed a miracle, a living legend, and it had chosen to leave him with memories, a connection, and a sense of wonder that would never fade. He thought about what had happened, the rescue, the awakening, the bond they had shared, and the creature's departure. Each moment felt significant, a thread woven into the fabric of his life that would shape him forever. He realized that the ocean held mysteries far beyond human understanding, and that some creatures were meant to remain hidden, their existence a secret that connected past, present, and future. He felt privileged to have been part of that secret, even if only for a brief time. The diver began to ascend slowly, letting the currents guide him toward the surface. As he rose, he noticed the light changing, shifting from deep, filtered blue to brighter, clearer hues. Small fish darted past him, oblivious to the incredible event that had unfolded below. Yet he felt their presence as part of the continuity of life, part of the world that the creature belonged to, and part of the vast, interconnected web of existence that humans often overlooked. At the surface, he broke through the water, gasping in the fresh air. The sky stretched wide above him, and he realized how small he felt in comparison to the vastness of the ocean and the yet extraordinary creature that had just left his life. But he also felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had been part of something rare, something beyond human imagination. He had encountered a being that was ancient, intelligent, and free, and he had shared a connection that transcended words. He sat on the edge of his boat, letting the sunlight warm his wet skin, and replayed the moments in his mind, the first encounter, the rescue, the awakening, the bond, and finally, the farewell. Each memory felt vivid, alive, and full of meaning. He realized that this experience had changed him, not just as a diver, but as a human being. He had seen courage, resilience, intelligence, and trust in a form unlike anything he had ever known, and he had learned lessons that would stay with him forever. He thought about the creature's departure. It had left, but not entirely. Its presence lingered in his mind, its intelligence and grace etched into his memory. He understood that it would continue its life in the depths, unseen by most, free to exist as it had for centuries. But he also knew that he would carry a part of it with him, always a reminder of the beauty, power, and mystery of the ocean. and of the extraordinary connection that could exist between human and legend. The diver reflected on the fragility of life, both human and non-human, and on the importance of compassion. He realized that his choice to help the creature, to act with care and courage, had created a bond that transcended species and language. In saving it, he had not only given it a chance to survive, but had opened a door to understanding, respect, and mutual recognition. The experience reminded him that even brief encounters could have lasting impact, shaping who we are and how we perceive the world. He thought of the myths and stories he had once dismissed as fantasy. Now he understood that they contained fragments of truth, glimpses of reality that humans could not always comprehend. The creature he had saved was living proof of that truth. It had existed for centuries, surviving, adapting, and maintaining its life in the hidden depths of the ocean. And he had been there to witness a part of its story, a rare and precious chapter in the life of a legendary being Dot, as the sun began to set, painting the horizon with gold and pink. The diver remained on the surface, staring out over the endless ocean. He felt a sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that he had acted with courage, respect, and compassion. He had encountered something extraordinary, and though it had returned to the depths, it had left him with lessons, memories, and a profound appreciation for life in all its forms. He realized that the story of the creature, its trust, and its departure would stay with him forever. It would influence his actions, his choices, and his perspective on the ocean and its hidden wonders. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to respect the mysteries of the sea, to protect life, and to cherish moments of connection. However brief or rare Dot, and though the creature was gone, its presence lingered in the currents, in the shimmering patterns of light on the water, and in the diver's memory. It was a reminder that life, trust, and courage could exist in the most unexpected places, and that even in a world so vast and mysterious, moments of extraordinary connection could change everything. The diver took a final deep breath, letting the salt air fill his lungs, and felt a quiet smile form on his face. He had saved a legend, witnessed an awakening, formed an unspoken bond, and watched it return to the ocean's embrace. And in that quiet, reflective moment, he understood that the encounter had not ended. It had simply transformed, leaving him with a story he would carry forever, a story of courage, trust, and the magic of the deep ocean.